Welcome back. You're listening to Real Estate Matters here on the Money Matters Radio Network. I'm your host, Bob Gallagher, joined in studio today by our co-host, Stacy Alcorn of Lair Realty. And on the line, we have with us a special guest, the owner of Empire Loan pawn shops throughout New England, Michael Goldstein. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Thanks. Nice talking to you.
So, Mike, tell us a little bit about how you got into the pawn shop business.
Well, I mean, I got into the pawn shop business when I was 12 years old. My grandfather started a pawn shop down in the Bronx called Willis Pawnbrokers. And I was working for my dad worked for him, and I worked for my father on weekends when I was 12 years old. But then I worked throughout my early childhood there, and wound up coming up to Boston in 1981 for college. And through a number of different circumstances, I had the opportunity to borrow some money and start my store in 1985. But I grew up in this business, and actually when people ask me why did I do this, I always say the same thing. It was the path of least resistance. So I have this film degree from Emerson, but I wasn't going to starve for my art. I knew how to do this. There seemed to be a market, so I just went into it.
And you've built it up to how many stores now?
We have 8 stores throughout New England. In 1985 we opened our first store. In 1990 we opened our second, and then over the years we open them about every 3 to 5 years. That tends to be our kind of growth pattern. And now we have 8.
Wow. Now, what are you looking for when you're going to open up a store? I mean, are you more in the bigger cities, or do you have them in the suburbs too?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Our first suburban kind of experiment was Stoughton. But before that, we really looked to bigger cities. We looked for a particular financial demographic. We can't have a town that's completely depressed, right? We need people that are working because what we do is we lend money on people's personal merchandise. So we like to have a nice blue-collar mix. Some key workers. We even have some police officers that borrow money from us from time to time. But working folk generally in the lower financial brackets. But yeah, so we opened in Providence. Providence is a great town for us. It's got a nice mix, like I said, of kind of blue collar and upper income folk. We're in Worcester. Worcester's a great town for us. Without casting any aspersions on Lawrence, we did look at Lawrence many years ago, and though I'm sure it's a great town, there didn't seem to be enough vitality there. It just seemed kind of, frankly, it seemed like a ghost town when I went there, and we might look at Lawrence again, but there just didn't seem to be enough vibrancy there. The second thing we look for when we go to open up a store is we like to see places that already have pawnbroking establishments, because my philosophy is I would rather compete than educate. And what I mean by that is if I go to a town that already has a pawn shop, the people generally that are using it know the way pawn shops operate. And I feel that we're Empire Loan can really compete well against other pawnbrokers. Stoughton was the first town we went into that really didn't have a presence, and it worked out fine. I mean, Stoughton has been one of our fastest growing stores, and that's very suburban for us. So we were pleasantly surprised. It doesn't really, match my model that I just spoke about, but yeah, that's what we look for.
How does somebody pawn something? Like, say I had a watch. What do I do?
Sure. Well, that's the basic question. How does pawnbroking work? Mm-hmm. I like to say that we're original banking. So you bring me something of value like a watch. Mm-hmm. If it has a name that is collectible on the secondhand market, we have our experts. We have watch experts. You name the category, we'll find someone that really knows about it, and we try to figure out what the fair secondhand value is for a dealer, not necessarily for the general consumer. But for instance, if you had a Vacheron Constantine, which can be a very expensive watch, I would call my secondhand watch guy that loves Vacherons. I'd give him a description. I might even send him a picture now. And he would say to me, because we deal on a trust basis, he'd say, yep, based on what I'm seeing here, I'd offer you, let's say, $2,000. So now I can turn to the consumer and say, I can loan you $1,000 or $1,100 because I know that if it stays with me, I can make one phone call and I'll sell it to the watch dealer for $2,000. Now, right. You as the consumer, I offer you, let's say, $1,100. You say, fine, that works for me. We fill out a loan ticket. The loan is good for 4 months. In Massachusetts, generally speaking, the interest rate is 3% per month. In Rhode Island, the interest rate is 5% per month. But assuming it was in Boston, you would borrow the $1,100. You'd have up to 4 months to pay back that loan and get your merchandise back. So you pay back the principal plus 3% per month interest. And if you do that, you get your merchandise back. And frankly, this is an interesting fact, about 90% of the people that borrow money from pawnbrokers in the Northeast wind up paying back their loan and getting their merchandise back. About 10% lose it to foreclosure.
Well, I'm surprised. I figured a lot of people would, bring stuff to the pawn shop just to almost sell it. I mean, I know they set it up as a loan, but I figured a lot of people wouldn't go back to get it.
We do have a second-hand license, so we do some buying, but it's not the majority of what we do. In Boston, as an example, we do about 110 loans per day and maybe 5 or 6 outright buys. It's the number one thing when I'm at a party and people ask me about pawnbroking. I often will say, take a guess what percentage of people pay back the loan and get their merchandise back, and overwhelmingly people will say, 40%, 45, 50%. And when I tell them that 9 out of 10 people pay back their loan to get their merchandise back, it's really shocking for people that I tell that to.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I was going to guess like 20 to 30%. I never would have thought in a million years it would be 90%.
Interestingly, most of our customers will pawn the same 4 or 5 items over and over again. We're almost, a lot of our customers are unbanked. They don't have checking accounts. They go paycheck to paycheck. And they pawn, an unexpected bill comes up. They'll pawn an item 2 or 3 months later. They'll take it out, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, they pay back the loan and get it back. And then we see them maybe, a month later, they're pawning the same item. We're on a first-name basis with many of our customers. A lot of our customers are repeat customers. It's really different than what the old-time film and TV folk used to depict pawnbroking as. Well, of course, now pawnbroking has gotten a whole new kind of notoriety because of the pawn shop shows. But in the past, we were seen as like the guy on his last dime. He comes in, he sells his merchandise, and that's really not what pawnbroking has ever been.
So how do you know that you're not getting stolen items?
Well, we don't absolutely know, but of course we have a keen eye for, the people that walk into our store. So number one, if I've never seen you before and you show me a 1-carat diamond and ask me, is this real, that will raise some bells, right? That'll raise some bells and whistles. And we have, on occasion, called our local police without being judge and jury. If somebody comes in with something extremely valuable and it doesn't seem to match, we will actually tell the customer, we'll ask, how did you come by this merchandise? Is it yours? Who does it belong to? We might hear on very rare occasion, it belongs to my aunt or my sister or my cousin, to which we say, not a problem, but we work with the Boston Police Department. Unfortunately, we have to call and have somebody come down and ask you about it. Now, that happens maybe, I've been in business 27 years now, maybe that's happened 6 or 7 times over that many years. Wow. And we will do exactly what I just said. And the customer frequently, I shouldn't say frequently, on occasion the customer says, no problem, I'll wait. And on occasion the customer says, no, I'm going to leave. Now, we never hold somebody, but we do hold the merchandise, and we do have a picture of their ID. We take a copy of their ID. It's very rare that happens, but interestingly, we just had a case, a camera come in, and when we looked at the camera, we looked at the photos of the camera. It was a family that had done a trip from Baltimore up to New York to the Basketball Hall of Fame to Boston for the marathon, and the person giving me this camera didn't match any of the photos. And we said to the person, where did you get this? And he told us, quite honestly, I found it on the Red Line in Quincy. To which we said, okay, we have to have somebody come down and, kind of look at it because it doesn't seem to belong to you. Now, that person left. We took it a step further. We actually did a news story. It was on Channel 5. They ran something on the news, and the family was from Spain. They were able to get in touch with us, and we were able to ship them their camera.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was actually a great ending, and you can still find that story on Channel 5.
That's awesome. And you guys have
that's great.
You have a cool app. Tell us about how the app works for Empire Loan.
Yeah, we developed. Yeah, thanks for asking. We developed an app called Cash Cam, and it allows you to take a picture of an item, put a brief description on it of what it is and where you got it perhaps, or what you think the value is, whatever it is you want to put down as a description. press a button, and it comes right to Empire Loan. We're able to see the picture. We do our research, and we try to get back to people within 24 hours with an idea of what we think we can loan on it, or it might be, that we send back an email saying, I'm awfully sorry, this doesn't fall within our parameters. We're not able to help you with it. But more often than not, we'll say, yeah, this looks like something of interest. It's really a point of entry for the customer for us to start a conversation. So we got a picture of, I'm trying to remember, we got a picture of some artwork that we were able to run the name of the artist, and it didn't turn out to be something that we were able to loan money on because the artist was contemporary, still alive, and we tend to shy away from contemporary art. We have done loans on some early American oils, and that was a really nice loan for us many years ago. But yeah, with the CashCam app, it's just a way for us to start a conversation. We had a picture of an antique slot machine that came in, and we were able to loan money on that. That was a really good example of CashCam being useful. We had a very large diamond up in the Lynn community. We opened up a store in Lynn about a year ago, and it was a very large diamond ring. It turns out that the person needed, from what they told us, they needed to make first payment on their kids' college for the year. We were able to loan them some money, and I'm not sure if that person's gotten it back yet, but that's the type of loan that we're able to make.
So it helps people out in a lot of different ways.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything. We want market share, and if there's we live in a high tech world. Why not use the technology that's available? As a matter of fact, we launched about maybe 2 months ago our loan center where customers who pawn with us can actually pay their interest online.
Wow.
And although that sounds like a very natural thing in the world we live in, for pawnbroking, it's possible. We're doing some research. It's possible that we're the only pawn shop chain in the country that allows customers to pay their interest online. Not absolutely certain about that, but we're doing our research.
Wow. What kind of weird stuff have you gotten through your pawn shop?
Well, I don't know if this is weird, but many years ago we did a loan on, I think it was about 12 or 15 cases of collectible wine. And the really cool thing about that is when the customer asked about borrowing money on the wine, we said, well, send us a list of what you have. He did that. He had an absolutely detailed list of every case that he had. I called in a wine appraiser from a local wine store. Everybody knows the name. He happened to be from Martinetti's. Called in a wine expert from there. He looked at the list and said, yeah, this looks like interesting stuff, but we'll need to do a tasting. Called back the customer and said, it looks like it's something we can lend you money on, but we're going to have to do a tasting, and we're going to have our wine expert pick a bottle at random. Now, the thing to know there is that once you break up the case becomes slightly less valuable, but there was no way I was going to do a loan without checking the wine. Now, interestingly, the customer said, not a problem, we can do a tasting on one condition. He said, everybody that works for you has to be able to participate. He didn't just want it to be the wine taster, me, and the person borrowing the money. I thought that was very gracious of him, and that's in fact what we did. In addition to that, we were able to get a local reporter from the public radio station, from WBUR, to come down and actually do a story on us. So that was really cool. He did a radio story on the entire loan, and we wound up loaning, I think it was somewhere near $20,000.
$20,000?
Wow.
Yeah, one of the cases, he had actually two cases of a wine called EKM. And EKM is a very well-known dessert wine that it happens that Bill Cosby at the time was the number one collector of EKM. There were some other very, very valuable reds, French reds that my wine appraiser just went crazy over. And we sat here and we did this great wine tasting, and we loaned them $20,000 on these multiple cases of wine.
And what do you think the value was of the wine?
Well, the value, if I loaned $20,000, now this was many years ago, it had to be worth $35,000, and I'm talking about just wholesaling off to a wine distributor. That's not from the customer. So, I mean, it could have been $40,000 or $50,000 to the actual consumer, the end user.
How many bottles of wine was that?
I think, like I said, we took in 12 cases, and I think a case of wine is 6 bottles.
Wow.
I think that's the case. So yeah, it was a lot of wine.
$50,000 for wine. I can't imagine. I wouldn't want to drink it ever.
Yeah, well, if you've got that kind of money to buy that kind of wine, you drink it. People buy that kind of stuff. It's completely disposable income.
But that seems unusual that they would be going to a pawn shop. Because what is the average amount that you're loaning?
Great question. Our average loan is about $310 across 8 stores. So you're right. It's very unusual. But, I don't recall exactly what this person needed it for. And frankly, we don't ask.
Right.
We don't ask what it's needed for. People will sometimes tell us. But it could be that he needed to make payroll for his company.
Right.
Certainly somebody borrowing that kind of money is not, someone who's working at, McDonald's. No casting no aspersions on McDonald's. But, they're probably someone in business for themselves, or they are in the middle of, they might be caught selling a house before buying the next one.
Mm-hmm.
They may need to have, raise some money just for a down payment because, you know what happens when you're buying or selling real estate. There might be a gap in time that was unexpected.
Right.
We've seen that before. We have had small business people, small entrepreneurs need to make payroll. That's fairly common.
Right.
We've got a paint contractor down in Stoughton that has made it a regular practice, probably 3 or 4 times a year when he's caught short, they can payroll with some of his painters, comes in and he's got a lot of really nice jewelry and he'll borrow $15 or $20K.
Right.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting stuff. So if you'd like to learn more about Empire Loan, you can check them out online at empireloan.com. Again, it's empireloan.com. And you have a Facebook page as well?
We do, yeah. Facebook page, Empire Loan, of course. We've got Twitter. We've got all the stuff that my kids use that I don't know, I don't understand, but we've got it all.
Well, if you're interested, you can also check it out on Ross Mortgage's Facebook page. There'll be a link there to go ahead and like Empire Loans on Facebook as well, and we'll also post additional information about the show. That's about it for us this weekend. We appreciate you coming on the show with us, Mike.
Great, not a problem. I loved it.
Great, and tune in again next weekend for more Real Estate Matters.